Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Okay. First of all, there are a couple things I'd like to announce to kind of kick off the discussion today, or at least before we kick off the formal part of our discussion. And the first thing that I really want to talk about is I want to thank our sponsors. So Product Coffee is free for all of our attendees. We intend for it to continue being free. That's why we do it. And the idea is just kind of what Steve was talking about. We get together, we talk with each other, we get to know each other a little bit like we've been doing for the last few minutes. And then we'll learn something. And most weeks, what we do is we'll learn something and then we'll take a few minutes to try to put it in practice, even if just for 10 or 15 minutes, to try to help kind of really burn that skill in that we're working on and take something a little bit more tangible than just having sat through a webinar where we did some kind of one-way learning. And so, and that's what we'll be doing today as well. But while this is free for everybody to join, it's not free to put on. There's a lot that goes into putting these sessions together every week. And so we have some sponsors that really help to make that possible. And I want to ask everyone to, take a moment to recognize our sponsors. Method, which is a digital software development agency. We do custom software development as well as digital experience and customer experience and digital strategy, digital transformation strategy. We also have Pragmatic Institute, who is one of the best known names in training and certifying product managers across the world. And Feature Upvote provides us some software that lets us take your suggestions for the types of sessions you'd like to see here at Product Coffee, kind of in the same way that we do Product Camp. If you go to productcoffee.com/ideas, you'll see our ideas suggestion board, and you can make your own suggestions or vote on suggestions that other people have made and help influence the types of things that we're going to talk about here at Product Coffee every week. And Feature Upvote provides that software for us, and it's a really easy to implement platform if you're thinking about collecting some direct customer feedback. It's really inexpensive. Most of its competitors are literally 10 times as expensive as Feature Upvote is. So it's really easy to use, really affordable, and a great product. And we want to thank all of them for supporting Product Coffee as we go forward. Today, though, it's time for us to switch over and welcome our speaker, Dr. Vanina Delobelle, who is going to be speaking about prioritization with the RICE framework. This was when we did our introduction to prioritization a few weeks ago. I asked what frameworks people would be interested in going into a deeper discovery on and learning more about. And this was one of the ones that came up as the popular request. So here we are. And I'm going to now turn the camera over to Vanina. Welcome. And thank you again, Vanina. Take it away. It's all yours now.
So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I think I present myself for most of you, I guess, right? But my name is Vanina Delobelle. And it will be my pleasure today to have a conversation with you about the RICE framework. So I think you've seen a lot of prioritization, or you discussed in the past a lot of prioritization network like the Eisenhower. I don't know if you discussed this one, but there are many others like the DFV, Scano. So today our focus will be more on the RICE one. So wrong screen, as I told you, I have 3 screens. So one of the first thing that I started highlighting during my introduction was that there are a lot of errors that are seen, when the prioritization is not done correctly. So we see companies either not putting enough emphasis on the prioritization, or going fast over it, or do a loose prioritization. We see also companies changing priorities just after the process is done. And we've seen also companies who do not have the right people who are attending and participating to the process. So this, by not doing it right, has a lot of consequences. The first one that we see way too often is that deadlines are being pushed, and you end up having a project that is costing way more than it should. In the meantime, because the project is not implemented, there's a loss in revenue as well. The fact that people might not have the right person to participate, you can see the product not being adopted. And you can see also that there might be wrong priorities being set, right? So misrepresentation, so functionality that are not present. So therefore it will also, mean a lack of adoption of the product at the end. So I just wanted to start with the importance of prioritization. Probably you're all already, you already bought in on this one, but I think it's very, very important because, as I said, no matter what, I still see the same mistakes again and again and again. So why is that, right? So today, as I said, we are going to focus more on the RISE framework, which for me, I believe it is the one that can give you the most granularity, and also is probably the one that is the most accurate for your prioritization. And personally, this is the one I like using the most with customer. And very often I combine this one, the RISE, with the ICE. And I'll show you as well how I'm doing all this. So I'm calling the RISE framework as the ICE on steroids. That's how I call it. Because the RISE is taking on the base of the ICE network with, desirability, feasibility, viability, which is very much what people want, what people can afford, and what people meaning the organization can really make happen, right? And so from that base, I combine this one, and I'll show you a concrete example where I start with this one, and then I go and apply the RISE, which is going to add other dimensions. So when we work with the RISE network framework, there are different steps that I'm taking. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is all about experience, and that's why I want this to be a conversation. So if you have any question, you can always post them on the chat or raise your hand, whatever, and we can answer also real time. So the steps usually is first, define the scale, right? And I'll show you that there are very different ways of doing it. And defining the scales can also apply to the different organization. I don't think that there is one framework. I mean, that the framework is exactly the same for everybody. Like I said, there is no such thing as agile methodology when you are doing a product development. I do not believe that there is only a RISE framework that is 100%, like you take the theory and you apply it. And you need to adjust all these tools to the client needs, the customer needs, the project needs, to make them, I would say, efficient and successful. Then once you define the scale, you'll see people and all the different participants of this process of rating will rate the variables from their perception as well, and their knowledge and their expertise. And that's why we usually like to have people representing different groups. Then you make the mathematical calculation, which is the easiest part actually, because you just apply the formula. And then this will give you then a ranking of the features, but you can also define a threshold about saying, okay, this will mean these features are accurate, this one are maybe less accurate, and do some kind of grouping at the end. You can readjust manually, and very often you have to readjust manually because again, if you want just to stick to the mathematical formula, you can do that, but it's not necessarily going to always represent 100% accuracy of what the reality needs to be. And then you have your final ranking, that is the one that you want to go with. What does RICE stand for? So RICE is a 4-dimensional framework. And I can say that sometimes I even make it a 5th. I add another dimension, which is what the competition is doing, right? So then we were even closer to reality. So these 4 variables are first, impact, reach, effort, and confidence. And I'll walk through all of them and the formula to see what exactly they mean and how to consider them when you are willing to apply it. So reach, as I mentioned, there could be different ways, and you will see in one example, the reach is actually the number of users that participated to the user research. But in general, I will give you just the pure theory right now, and then we'll go through the example to show you application of it. This is really your market opportunity, right? The number of customers, of users that will be impacted by that particular feature. So if your market is 25 million users, that could be it. If it's going to be 10 users because you are doing a project and you are using the RICE for an internal organization, that can be the reach. The second one is the effort. So the effort usually is one of the variables that is rated by people like engineering and operation people, right? They will understand how difficult it would be to build or implement that particular idea or that particular feature. And you would look at this in terms of man hours, or how big of a team it requires, or if there are any dependencies with other projects or other systems. So, there are a lot of different elements that can come in the effort, right? It's not because it's a big work, but it could be that the dependencies are so big that actually the effort will be very high because there's barely anything you can do, let's say, with the integration of the system. The next one is the impact. So this is really about the market, and it is about understanding how much the feature will help the customer, do their work and use the product or use the service, right? How good of an experience, how much time it is going to help them save, what's the benefits for the end user of this project. And the last one is the level of confidence and accuracy that you are willing to put next to your rating. So if you think that, perfectly, that project, you already even maybe started assessing it, so you are absolutely confident in the rating that you are giving, so that's cool, 100% confidence. And then there could be that there's things that are ideas that have been put in the prioritization list, and you really don't know exactly what this is going to mean, what is going to be the impact. So your level of confidence is therefore lower. So you're going to apply that ratio or percentage for those features. So this is going to give a little more, I would say, accuracy. But one of the things that I want to highlight here is that, again, as you can see, level of confidence is not necessarily a mathematical ratio or mathematical result. It's based on human feelings or human knowledge or human input. So as in all these networks, even if there's a formula and it might seem super mathematical, and this is great, there will always be a human touch, as I mentioned before, either for the refinement of your ranking or even for the rating of the criteria. So this is important to understand, because sometimes there could be conflicts between groups or between people or interest. A group obviously is going to be more interested in a certain feature than another one. So there could be some personal and emotional, I would say, implication or injection in the process, which is fine. We're all human, and at the end, whatever we build is also for humans. So that's fine. So here is the formula, which is easy, right? It will be your reach multiplied by your impact, multiplied by your confidence level, divided by the effort. This gives you the right score for each of your feature. And what is important to note, because I have seen sometimes my customer being lost. When we come back, he will say, okay, what does that mean? Which one? So the higher the score, the better the feature, okay? So this is how you have to see it. So this is really the theory, meaning that is probably everything that you also can find in any book or any article, any whatever on the internet. But now, let me walk you through a few concrete examples of real cases that I worked with clients, and most of them recently. So it's not like it's been many years. That said, that framework, I mean, it never gets obsolete, right? Because it will only get obsolete depending on the way you are rating it. So if you're changing your rating, if there are some changes that happen in your organization, that changes that happen in the market, that will impact really the changes that will have that will affect the results, but the calculation itself will not change. All right, so first example, this is a bank. And again, I have a spreadsheet, so I will take you through very, very concrete example where I'll show you exactly the numbers, the calculation, the way it was done and so forth. But I first would like to introduce you to how really the process worked on these cases. So the first one, again, it was for a bank. We received a list of features that the business, right, the owners of the project put together. So there was these features. We took all these features, we ran them through user research, okay, and that helped us already understand a certain level and streamline or organize that list. Then we went through the definition and the rating by using the level of confidence. I put here based on percentage of response that were given. So let's say this feature, like 80% of the customers of the, I would say, customers that were questioned during the interviews said, yes, I'm interested in, right? This feature, maybe 50% only said they were interested in. So that's how we took the level of confidence. So as you can see, this is a different way, again, of considering the level of confidence. It's not like the head of IT saying, yeah, I'm feeling 100% confident in the number I'm giving you. This is not taking a person, but it's taking a number of responses to apply to it. The next one was a luxury brand, and their goal was actually to organize. They were going through a change, and again, and there are all these projects, and everybody has an idea, and this department is or wants to be more important than the other one, and this one is more vocal, so their voice is taking over the others, and then the others say, well, they never listen to me. So there are some situation like this where you need to step back and just say, okay, how am I going to organize all these investment? Because, your amount of investment is limited. So each department came with their own business case. We say, well, like an intake process, if you maybe have spoken about that in the past. So they all went through this intake process and came with their business case and say, well, this is my market size, my potential, this is everything. So they cleared their case. And all these projects then were, went to triage, and then they were selected based on the highest potential for the department, and they were consolidated. So there were already some of them that might have been, put on the side because among the whole pool, it was just not worth doing it. And then only we applied the RISE framework and using the information from the business case. So in that particular instance, when I was giving you the example of the reach, this is where we use the business case, right? So it's coming from research. So in this case, again, it is not coming from, necessarily that somebody you think, maybe 25 million or 3 million. It was coming from research. And then we went through the prioritization across the organization, and that gave, priorities for the entire group. So it was not just one department, it was for everybody. So everybody was involved. It gave transparency across the board. Everybody knew what was first and what was second, and so forth. Okay, and let me check the time. I want to make sure that we have, I'll go fast. Okay, so the next one was a grocery. Here, it was a brainstorming exercise. Then we went through a first step. That is an example where I mentioned to you that you can combine ICE and RISE, where we first did the ICE exercise with viability, feasibility, desirability. We, ranked the product in those three groups, and then, based on how high were both of them, it gave you three different, I would say, group of products. So that would be like the now, the near, and the next. And from that group, then we started applying the RISE framework. So I'll just go straight now to the spreadsheets to show you how all these have been working. So this is the bank example. As I mentioned to you, the reach here, these are the features, right? The description, you have the reach, the impact, the effort, the confidence, and the score. So the reach was the number of people who went through the survey or who participated, the number of people who got interviewed. Then we had different people rate the impact and the effort, because there are different groups within the impact that had something to say, right? It might have been compliance, acquisition, spend, loss reduction, productivity. So different people within the business. Same for the effort. There were different also criteria within. So as you can see here, this one is giving you an example of criteria within the criteria. And then confidence, this was unanimous consensus between the group. Yeah, I think we will apply that percentage of confidence. And then we calculated the score, okay? And as you can see, you can then reorganize and you have your top features, which in this case was the getting started handbooks. All right. So quickly, luxury. So this was based on project. I just didn't post it because this was very specific. And then there was a rich, as I mentioned, that was coming from the business case. Here we just had an impact. It was way more, way easier. There were not as many sub because it was internal decision that they needed to make. So it was more about how we're going to rank the different projects within the organization. And lastly, sorry, that was the grocery, as I mentioned to you. We had done a first ICE ranking with the now, then you have the near, and then you have the next. And here it was just like, this is a pure example, and that's why I kept it for last. This is a pure example about how you're actually tailoring the framework to the need of the organization. So very much immature organization. So the reach here will be the weight, right? We put it there, right? Is that how important was that? Is that, I would say, criteria. The effort is the risk. Just because honestly, when I started using the RICE wording, it was confusing for them. So they prefer to use those other wording. So it just, again, doesn't matter. Whatever works for the client works for me. I can always, tailor whatever they need. At the end, it's the same process. Confidence, this will be the threshold that they applied. So you see, we marked it as, we just color coded them and we say, oh, everything which will be above 200 will be 100% confidence. Everything from 200 to 100 will be the 80% and below will be the 50. And then the impact was the opportunity. So we apply all this, and that's how we got the results. And I just wanted to show you as well quickly, and then we'll move on to the application, is that you can see here, you have some, the green, which was the 100% confidence. That's when at the end of the process, we looked at those, because in theory, you should have believed, right, that the one that we're going to be into the now would be probably 100% confidence, right? But that's where you start seeing, how things are just, intertwined, and how you have this adjustment. So we went through with the group, and we said, okay, when we look at this particular feature, is it really a now, right? Because it shows that you're not 100% confident, but is it really a now? And that's how we made some tweaks, and that we moved around a couple of features between the different buckets, because here you can see these two are 80% confidence, and still they are in the next, which usually in the next is like, okay, God knows what we're going to do. We are certainly not prepared to tackle those features. We'll look at that later. That is to show you, therefore, that there's some manual intervention to make sure that at the end of the process, the ranking is accurate and is reflecting actually what the business needs. All right, so that said, I will go back to this one. And that was a last example, and I don't have I didn't put the Excel, but quickly, just to show you, the goal was to show you that this can also apply for anything. It can apply for project, it can apply for features, it can apply for user flows. And this one, it was about improving efficiency. So we applied the process to user flows. All right, now it's your turn. What we have here is that I'm going to put my screen in that mode and show you. I hope they will all fit in one. All right, so I don't know if you can see, guys. Can do better. Hold on. Yes, I can. All right, so I think I can do this. So tell me if you can see. But maybe I'll move this around. Let me do that. All right. Never mind. No, it doesn't want me to do that. Okay, so you have four scenarios. I'd like everybody to pick a scenario of your choice. And Jason, if you can help me, how many are we?
Do 9 teams, and what I've actually done is I've put in the notes document, I've actually mapped the scenarios to teams.
Okay.
Just to make it a little bit easier, and I'm pasting copies of the slides that show the teams directly into the notes document as well. So go over to productcoffee.com/resources, and the specific slides that have all the different scenarios will be there for you to look at, and your team mapping will be there as well.
Yeah. So what you're going to do is that I think Jason is going to do breakout rooms, like maybe maximum like 10, 15 minutes, because what I'd like is that you guys come back and you explain, each group explains their results and what was their way of thinking and how you applied the, the framework. And what are your results? Because, and I would like, I think we have the opportunity, right, Jason, to have different groups having the same scenario, right?
Correct.
I like that. Okay, because I'd like to show you eventually then the results might be different or not. I don't want to influence anybody. And then have the conversation when we come back if there are any discrepancies. That works? So Jason, I'll leave that to you. If you do the breakout rooms.
Okay, I'm just pasting this last scenario in. So there we go. And we'll be invited to your breakout rooms momentarily. I'm going to go to 8 rooms actually. So here we go. Mick had a question earlier. He was asking, he said, this question applies to all frameworks. For framework to help a company succeed, my understanding is that it has to be adopted by many folks throughout the company. If a group of product managers uses RICE, what are some effective practices they can use to present their conclusions to stakeholders or executives who aren't familiar with this framework, or executives who use a different framework altogether, or their gut? What are some practices? Have you got some thoughts on that, Vanina?
Yeah, well, so there's a lot of education. The way they might have used a previous framework, and we had some cases like this. So the definition of the framework will come back to what do they need to achieve, right? And how they need to achieve it. So maybe they know a framework, but we teach them that, okay, this one might bring you there. And if we do this one, you will have that answer. So I'm not sure that, and it's not I'm sure that I am sure that each framework can have a different, it serves a different purpose, right? Depending also on the level of information that the organization has in order to do the prioritization. So maybe the framework they are familiar with. I mean, I had one, they wanted to use Kano. They wanted to use Kano. That was their thing. And I am not a fan of Kano. Okay, I'm just bringing it there. I feel that so much inaccuracy in this framework, but that was their thing. So we just adjusted and we just used their Kano, and we worked with the parameters that we had, and that was their thing, and this is how their brain was used to see things. And but we were also highlighting the drawbacks and where they're missing something, during the process. But again, it comes down to the client at the end, and not just because they are the client, but also to the point, because this is maybe what they know best and what they want to unify everything across the board. They want everybody to use the same framework because they want to be able to measure everything the same way. And that can also make sense. And there's no reason to change that, because then again, indeed, the way of ranking will be different.
I've also been in a situation where I was the only one using a framework and no one else in the organization was using any framework at all. They were, it was just kind of the Wild West, and it didn't, and I had no trouble in that scenario, just bringing my framework to the table and say, here's the list of priorities that I have, and using that as guidance for the conversation to explain why I had those priorities, and using that to get some feedback and some buy-in on that. And I think Greg commented also that Bruce McCarthy in his book talked a good deal about leveraging that framework as not only the framework for prioritization, but for conversation with executives as well. There was some comment in there. Then Rex had asked, also, he said, he's used WSJF before and wanted to know, how does RISE compare to WSJF? Is one better than another for certain products or business situations?
I would say that one is managing maybe the opportunity, and the other one is managing the loss of opportunity. Or the opportunity, sorry, I should say the opportunity loss. And I'm thinking that the RISE is more used on the business side. It's taking way more information from the business side, while the WSGS is taking more information on the technical side. That's, I would say, the distinction I would make between the two. But indeed, as I mentioned at the very beginning, those framework can be used, together. Maybe what can happen in that case that you would use the RISE, and then maybe you will apply the WSGS to see GF, where it says GF, to see, how more accurate you can be. So it's not like one or the other necessarily. It can be one and the other. And like, I love using the ICE and then the RISE. This is something that I bring very often my client through.
Excellent. So great. So let's see, we've got about 2 minutes left. Did anybody have any big takeaways from their group? Something that you learned, or where did you come up with? What were some of the things that worked or didn't work in terms of the RISE framework itself that helped solve your problem? Manuel says all these frameworks are ultimately just trying to quantify qualitative inputs. That's also why none of them are definitely better. Completely agree.
I think we also need to spend a fair amount of time of determining the input of each of the personas that are weighing in. So maybe an executive has a higher input than a lawyer, or vice versa.
Right.
Not necessarily. It could be that. Well, I'm saying I'm reacting like this, but it's not necessarily wrong. But the way I have done it, and just to give you a very concrete example, is that I was giving the same way for everybody, but at the end, depending on the results, the manual readjustment, however, was done by the executive. So somehow their weight was higher because they could vet the results and say, oh no, I'm not sure that this one is as important than the other one. So it's a way of somehow giving them more weight, but not during the exercise. Sure. I've not done it during the exercise.
Yeah, and for me, the lawyer comment was simply because in our example, our scenario, which was scenario 2, we were potentially going into people's homes. So there's some risk associated with that. So maybe a lawyer would In fact, to reduce our risk or liabilities need to weigh in heavier.
Yeah. So
I think, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
So yeah, and also the way I've applied them in the past, and it kind of goes back to the WSJF question as well, is RICE. One of the things the product manager really owns is pulling and aggregating these perspectives together to come up with the score in the way that I've used it in the past. So to your point, Jay, I think I would, in the situations I've been in, one way to handle that is for the product manager to ultimately make the decision on what each of those scores is based on many inputs. RICE, the way I've used it in the past, or similar frameworks to RICE, has been, this is, when I, as a product manager, I'm trying to make some decisions and score some things based on the information that I have at hand from all the sources that I have. And the value that I bring to the table is my ability to make a rational set of choices about what those scores ought to be. WSJF, on the other hand, the way it works, and maybe we should do a session on WSJF for those who don't know it, is it's great when you have a big group of people with diverse perspectives on the business, and it creates a framework for many people to weigh in and have their unique expertise explicitly accounted for. So it works if you've got a room of engineers and product people and marketing people and designers all sitting together to prioritize the work to be done. WSJF, by the way, for those who don't know, stands for weighted shortest job first. The idea is it creates a weighting based on the expertise of the different people at the table. So if you want to have the lawyer's voice explicitly counted, that's one of those things where you can get into a session and very rapidly go through some scoring exercises there. And I've found that to work really well, using RICE to help product management prioritize the things to focus on and present to the team and research first. And WSJF brings it home when you're getting down to the release level planning and trying to decide where to invest that limited capacity that I've got available in the actual release. So that's one way to use it. It's not the only way, but I found that successful. So, Vanina, thank you so much for doing this session today. This has been great. I've gotten a lot of great feedback already, and this was certainly one of our deeper exercises. So I had a lot of fun. I hope you all did too. I do see that Jess is back on. Vanina, do you have a moment to stick around? Jess had a question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, great. If you don't have a hard stop, Jess, I know you had a question earlier. Do you want to jump in with your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
There you are. Hey, there you are.
Hi.
Yes.
You, Jason. I have a super basic question because, as I've mentioned, I'm like a newbie in this field right now. For the prioritization, I'm so curious because I've seen a lot of. I'm trying to understand when it comes to the difficulty of, because one of the, I'll rephrase the question. One of the things that I've noticed is that the effort there's like an effort index conversation here. Now, how do you try to reconcile like the MVP, which is like the most basic version, and then like the ideal version? So how does it come into the framework, how the MVP should look like, and then how should the ideal experience should look like? Does it make sense?
Yeah. So the example I gave you, the last example actually, where you had a now, near, and next, was actually a very good example because the now corresponded to the MVP. And the ideal experience would be probably the now and the near, and eventually even the next. But that was that's how we did it. Is that we were thinking when we did the first, I would say the first round with the ICE, we were like, okay, what is desirable, viable, and feasible? And usually when I draw the line between those three groups, if you remember the graph, the now usually correspond to the MVP. That's how we see it. And obviously within the MVP, there could be some features or functionality that we're going to take out eventually when we go through the next level of prioritization of an understanding of what can be achieved. But this is definitely if you just want to define like high level, what is the MVP? I think the ICE is good enough.
Okay, so when you think about building a new product, definitely start with the MVP first, and then like just put it in your next somehow. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my next question is, I've noticed that in the reach, you have this like reach column in your framework. For that, when you say like interviews, is it necessarily what kind of interviews or like number of, let's say, users that you've reached? What kind of
25.
method?
Oh
Yeah. What kind of method? Yeah.
Yeah. So we do it's user research, right? Interviews. Yeah. So we have different ways. Sometimes it can be online. We use tools like user testing or Archer, whatever. I mean, different things, and or it could be focus groups that we've done as well. We've done it through Zoom or face to face. I mean, there are different ways. Yeah. And there are some companies, or you can do it yourself, or there are some companies, and even user testing is doing it. They help you also define the user that correspond to your criteria, right? And so you have these users, and then you go through the interview. So in that case, it was we used a company to recruit the users to participate to that focus group.
Okay, and how do you? Because my question is, there are like user groups that would probably have like a working prototype already. So definitely the credibility of that user research is already much higher versus say like a focus group discussion where you'll just listen to the customers. Oh, this is what I need. How do you manage or try to, how do you give weight to those kinds of methodologies wherein one is probably more credible given the type of like, given the methodology, which is like a working prototype already?
Okay, so these are two different things. If you already have a working prototype, it's one research. If you do not have a working prototype, it's a different research, right? So it will not be the same, I would say the same outcome that you will be looking for. But usually we are always talking about the 80-20 or whatever rule. I try to make sure that depending on what we do, right, is like, okay, I'm giving you this example. This product is going to be an online product, and we need that is going to address mainly the online users. So we need to make sure that they have some savviness and that they understand. Maybe we already need them to be customers of the brand. So it really depends also on the persona that you define. And I think AJ, this is what you mentioned at some point, is go for the persona. So you should also already know or define who is supposed to be your target audience, and then structure your recruiting based on that audience. But you can also have, I've done many cases, it could be only only savvy one and not savvy one. It could be that you want a mix of both because you want to make sure that it can address both. If it's something which is really targeting, it's very targeted products, and you probably want them to be already acquainted. It really depends on the product that you're launching or the outcome that you're looking for.
Okay, got it. Can I have one more question? I think I missed it because I got disconnected. There was a good question in the chat earlier. Like, what if your management doesn't use the same framework as you, as this, for example, and then you plan to introduce it to like really manage the conversation because they have a lot of things they wanted to push. Can you give some tips on how to manage that?
Yeah. So what I was saying before is that, again, it will depend on the organization. Some organizations are already set on the framework, right? And they want to use it across the different departments or across the different projects. So in that case, I mean, there is maybe not necessarily a need to really advocate for a new framework because they already have that in place. But you can always educate them. There's maybe their framework is not the best. So as you go through the process, you can highlight to them, the drawbacks of what that particular process that they're using is bringing, right? And you say, maybe if we had used that one, you could have had that kind of result. It could be that you also, if you have the time and the luxury, you run the two framework side by side, right? And then you show them the differences. So it's really an education. Or it could be that they don't know, right? They don't know what they don't know. And you are here to, advise them and advocate. And you like, I would say, a framework better because your experience has proved, in my case, I can say my experience has proved, and I'd like to use this one, and I position it and I explain them what are the benefits, and then we can, go for that one. So again, it's like all negotiation skills. It will really depend on who you have in front of them and how you can influence them, if you have an opportunity to influence them.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you, Jason. I have one. Actually, okay, I have one more. I will already use this opportunity. In impact, I saw that you have like high impact, etc. What if the metrics aren't really apples to apples? For example, because my role now is really on seller experience because I work for an e-commerce company in Asia. So what if the impact is not really apples to apples? So how do you like say it's high impact or versus low impact? How do you compare the different metrics? Does it make sense?
I think this goes back to what I said at the beginning, is that you need to define your criteria and how you're going to rate. You need to agree. These are the
different metrics.
Yeah. What does high impact mean for the group, right? It would mean this, and this, right? So it's not like you would impose to them. It's like you have to define the criteria with them and see what makes most sense.
Okay, got it. Okay, that's very clear. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Jason, also for giving me the opportunity to ask those very basic questions.
That's great. That's why we do this. So I'm glad you could join, and thanks for being here in your evening. So, and thanks everybody. That's going to wrap it up for the day. I hope to see those of you in Atlanta at our product coffee in person with Chuck next week. And for those of you online, I hope it's as smooth an experience online as it usually is. We're going to learn a lot next week, but should be a lot of fun. So thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.